Hi, my name is Josh Walker. Just a little bit about myself. I'm a junior here at NC State, majoring in business administration with a finance concentration. For the last 8 months, I've been working at a bank as an intern in the internal audit department, and so I've been exposed to some communication and writing in that way. So this presentation is going to be focused on the finance sector of business, and then more specifically, I'll get into some internal audit information. So to start off, I just have some general information about communication in finance. For the most part, people spend roughly a third of their time writing, 36%. 41% of that time is spent composing emails, and that statistic is something that I completely I agree with in my internship. A lot of time is spent composing emails because obviously you could walk down the hall and talk to somebody, but unless you have that written confirmation of the information that was passed, you might want to keep track of documents that you're going back and forth between different employees. So email is definitely a tool that is used heavily in finance. The rest of the writing in finance is divided between formal documents, memos, instant messages, and blogs. In terms of oral communication in finance, professionals spend the 37% of their time in one-on-one communication, 28% one-on-one on the phone, 31% in group meetings, and 19% in teleconferences. In my experiences, I've spent a lot more of my time than 37%, than 28% on the phone. In the roles that I've been in, I've done a lot more client-facing things. So I've had to call clients, I've had to call third-party vendors for the bank, and so I've spent a lot of my time over the phone, but it just really depends what role you're in, so I can definitely see how they came up with these kind of average percentages. Also, people are reporting that they spend 11% of their time communicating with those of other nations. So obviously it's very important going into the finance field that you have a background that is diverse, that you're open to communication from people from all different backgrounds and cultures. You can kind of cater to different kinds of people. Here's some of the importances of writing in finance, just different quotes from people in the field. So this first person says that team members who do not communicate effectively and efficiently through email, reports, or updates generally will not succeed in this industry. This is definitely true, and in terms of communicating effectively and efficiently through these things, there's so many different factors that come into play, whether that is simply writing without errors, so not having typos, not having grammatical errors, and then things like making sure that you're catering to the specific audience that you are writing to in that situation, because people have different backgrounds and different information for what topic you're writing on, so you really have to cater to those people. Also, it says creating communication a client can understand is paramount to success, and I could not preach that more in a role in a bank where I've dealt with clients. You really have to communicate in a way that's going to make them succeed, make them understand the information in the best way, and make them feel most comfortable. And so yeah, I couldn't agree with the second bullet point more. And you can read through these last two bullet points here from people in the finance field. Alright, so here is the audience that a finance professional is going to be presenting to or communicating with. You got clients, you got internal revenue, service subordinates, managers, senior level executives, financial institutions, accountants, and coworkers. The two bullet points that stick out most in this slide for me are clients and senior level executives. So obviously, in a finance industry, you're going to be wanting to cater to the client and in any way you can. That's going to be your foremost importance at your job. And then also in an internal audit role, you're going to be presenting a lot of your findings to senior level executives, which I'll get into more later in the presentation. So that's something that's very important as well, being able to present senior level executives in an efficient way. You can read through some of the example documents that someone in the finance field would deal with. As I get into my experiences, I will kind of focus on some of the internal audit documents. So here is some of my experiences working in the finance field. Again, I was an internal audit and risk management intern at a bank. So email is definitely heavily used. At least 50% of my communication was through email, and it's very important. As you see on my second bullet point, that you need to know when it's a formal situation and when it's an informal situation, because they can both be very important. Obviously, when you're dealing with upper level management, someone that's higher above than you, it's going to be a formal situation. You're going to want to really be careful about what wording you choose, how you're phrasing your words, making sure that your emails are free of error, things like that. But obviously, when it's just kind of a day-to-day task situation where you're just trying to get a little bit of information, you might have a question you need to ask, you're requesting a document, that's going to be an informal situation, something where it's really just about the time. You want to be efficient with your time, and so it's going to be a really quick email, something that you might not focus on as much. And obviously, because time is money in a lot of these situations. Also, you really have to know how to communicate verbally with all different parts of an organization. And that is something that I struggled with as I first entered my internship. I didn't know how to communicate with maybe the HR department versus the accounting department versus the finance department versus the mortgage department, because I really didn't have a background in all of that different information. So you really have to know how to cater to those different people. If you're presenting an audit situation, helping them understand audit information in the best way possible. Also, any document or communication that could potentially be client-facing is at highest priority, which could not be more true, and really in any situation. Anything that is going to reflect your business to a client or someone on the customer side is most important, because you want to keep the reputation of your organization very high. Now, I'm going to get into some internal audit and audit report specifics in terms of documents. So, internal audit is a sector of finance that uses very formal and rigid communication. The number one goal of audit is to reduce risk for the bank, which in turn saves the bank money. So there's some different types of documents that are used in internal audit: are emails, audit tests, controls, risks, and audit reports. The main form of oral communication is obviously presenting to your findings to the upper level management, which is very, very important. For my project, I interviewed my direct supervisor, who's the senior vice president of risk management internal audit at Paragon Bank. On average, she spends 30% of her time writing when at work. 70% of her communication is spent doing formal reports and audit writing. 30% comes in the form of communication to other parts of the bank. And something she really wanted me to emphasize, that she claims that young people have a high proficiency for analyzing data, interpreting it, and coming up with solutions. However, they are not as experienced and successful with communicating those findings to someone like the CFO in a clear and efficient way. And I couldn't agree more. I mean, NC State really emphasizes interpreting data, analyzing data, and connecting those dots to come up with a solution. However, if you can't present that solution in a clear and efficient way to the other people of an organization, then what's the use of that information that you came up with? So that's really something that I'm kind of striving to get better at, and I really think it'll benefit me as I enter the workforce. Some more tips for success that she gave me was that an auditor must be able to take the very formal phrasing and wording of an audit report or risk assessment and convert that into understandable terms bank-wide. And that's kind of what I was just talking about with presenting things to upper level management. She says, always know your audience. Communication should be geared to that particular individual and their needs. So obviously, if you're presenting something to a client versus someone in a finance department versus someone in the HR department versus an intern, maybe it's really all going to differ. And then she also thinks that recent college graduates need to get a better idea of how to communicate to upper level management. And that's really the thing I'm going to leave y'all with. That is kind of the focus of my report, is really once you interpret that data, once you do your work, you do your writing, and you come up with that solution or that idea that you want to present, it's really how you present that information to other people is how you're going to make an impact on an organization and kind of make an impact within your specific job role. Thank you for listening. I hope you got something out of that and learned something about internal audit or just generally communication in the finance sector. Thanks.